especially regarding economic and financial situation. We had here Ambassador Aho, who used to be a former ambassador of France to the US, and he shared a lot of wisdom regarding this conflict, and we are happy to share your views. So without any further delay, we give you the floor. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. I don't know how long you would like me to speak. I have about 15.
You have 15 to 20 minutes, so we are here to listen to you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, greetings to everybody, and thank you for having the meeting today about Ukraine. The best way to end this war would have been to avoid this war, because this was not a war that had to happen. It was largely a war provoked, unfortunately, by U.S. policy, not by Putin's imperial expansionism, but by the U.S. Desire to control the politics and the security of Ukraine, which was doomed to be very dangerous, because that is encroaching on the absolute security of Russia as well. So this war really dates back to the U.S. Push for NATO enlargement, which was designed from the start to ensure U.S. control, I would say, of all of the regions vacated by the Soviet Union after 1991. And the U.S. systematically had the idea that all former Soviet-dominated regions would become NATO territory. This began with the expansion of NATO to Central Europe in the late 1990s, and then further to the east in 2004, when the Baltic states, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovenia, and Slovakia joined NATO. Then the next play was 2008, when Bush pushed for NATO enlargement to Ukraine and to Georgia. This was obviously a bright Russian red line, because this had the aim, actually, of surrounding Russia in the Black Sea, which was an ancient aim of Britain and France in the First Crimean War, and was Zbigniew Brzezinski's idea of how to weaken Russian power and stop Russian power projection in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East. Well, the European leaders in 2008 knew that this was quite dangerous, and they tried to talk Bush out of it, but the United States prevailed as usual. European leaders are very disappointing in that they do not publicly explain anything about this, and so they just backed down. The Bucharest NATO summit committed NATO to enlarge to Ukraine and Georgia. This has proven to be a death knell for both of these countries. This is typical U.S. behavior. It is Henry Kissinger's famous line that to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. And this is a case of Ukraine dying right now at the behest of the United States, because of the pursuit of a goal which is impossible, NATO membership, and yet Ukraine is dying on the battlefield for something that never will take place, because Russia will never allow it to take place. And Russia has 6,000 nuclear warheads, and it's not going to be defeated. So this is actually the basic story. The U.S. arrogance is nonstop, and it really became even more dangerous in February 2014, when the U.S. conspired with the very right-wing forces forces in Ukraine to overthrow Yanukovych in a violent coup, and have no doubt how deeply engaged the U.S. was in that overthrow. Once again, Europe was silent or complicit in this. Europeans absolutely do not follow European interests, but American interests. And when Victoria Nuland said on the intercepted call describing this coup, fuck the Europeans, when they were threatening to delay, Europe should have taken a hint that maybe this wasn't completely in Europe's interest, but Europe didn't take a hint at all. And so with the overthrow of Yanukovych, a very right-wing regime was installed in Kiev under U.S. control, and it's there until today. And this regime has no agency. Basically, it's there to defeat Russia, or to weaken Russia, or to fight with Russia. And hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are dying in this process. I just have no respect for Zelensky and what he's doing. Of course, the situation is dangerous. I'm sure that he risks his life if he tries to make peace, but what he does for his country is a disaster, and we should understand that. Now, this war would have been avoided in 2008 if the U.S. had not pushed the NATO enlargement. It could have been avoided in 2014 if the U.S. had not participated in Yanukovych's overthrow. It could actually have been avoided in 2016 to 18 if Minsk II had been followed through by the French and German governments. This is another very sad episode because obviously Ukraine needed some kind of federal structure. It's something like Belgium at the best, which is two parts of the country that won't talk to each other very much, but need to be peacefully living together, and that was what the Minsk II idea was, but the U.S. rejected it, and again, France and Germany went along with the United States on this. I don't know why, frankly. I just don't understand how Europe doesn't respect its own needs. But in any event, the war could have been avoided in December 2021 when Putin put on the table a security agreement between the U.S. and Russia predicated on no NATO enlargement and negotiations over the placement of U.S. missile systems in Eastern Europe and perhaps in Ukraine, which was very high on the mind of Putin, understandably. And the U.S. gave a formal answer that it's none of Russia's business what the United States does either with NATO or with these missile systems. And so Putin launched the invasion on February 24th. So this is the story. And then 3 days later, Zelensky said, we'll negotiate. And the United States went and told him, you goddamn well will not negotiate. You will continue to fight. And that is where we are until today. And the U.S. generals, who are not very clever, never have been, to my knowledge, told the Ukraine to launch a big counteroffensive in June. And I don't know, 70, 80, 90,000 Ukrainians are dead because of this without any success whatsoever. And you hear Joe Biden talk 2 days ago, and he says it's all a wonderful success. So, we're led by idiots, I'm sorry to say. And we don't have anybody speaking honestly about this. Where's President Macron speaking honestly about this? He knows all of what I just said, in my view. All of it. But he says it one day, then the next day he backs down, then the next day he says it, then he backs down. There are 2 days in a row where he's saying the same thing. And that's because the U.S., and I don't understand, to this moment, I do not understand why the U.S. Has so much sway in what is clearly very bad for Europe. very dangerous. And of course, Germany, I mean, Schultz has been incredibly weak and incredibly bad at this also. But if France and Germany together, just the two, said to the United States, look, this is a disaster, this needs to be solved, it would be. But they don't. And if France, Germany, and Italy, and Spain said it together, it would be game over. There would be negotiations, and this thing would be ended. So that's what needs to be done. Basically, of course, the terms that one would get in settlements get worse and worse over time. They don't get better. All the facts on the ground are adverse, not better. You know, back in 2021, Russia wasn't demanding any territory other than Crimea. It was not demanding the Donbass, it was not demanding Zaporizhia or Kherson district. It was just saying Minsk II agreement and no NATO enlargement. Now it's annexed 4 territories, which frankly, because it's winning on the battlefield, would be very hard to dislodge. But more is going to come because Ukraine cannot win this war. Not only that, it can't even hold the status quo. So even the idea of a ceasefire without political terms is not going to hold. So there really need to be serious negotiations. Europe is getting very badly damaged by this war. The United States is too, but the U.S. is the culprit, so Europe should have its own interests in mind. But of course, Brussels is Brussels has become nothing more than an agent of U.S. foreign policy. And this is the big mistake of Europe, that the European Commission and NATO are in the same city. For heaven's sake, move the European Commission someplace else. Let Europe be Europe. Let NATO be NATO, even though I don't even believe we need NATO. But anyway, let NATO be NATO, but not the same thing. And it's this conflation of Europe and NATO that is so dangerous for Europe and dangerous for the United States, by the way. I want Europe to act on its own for Europe's own sake, but Europe could actually talk some sense into the United States, which is not very easy to do. I have no ability to talk any sense into Washington, though I try every day. There's absolutely no one interested in hearing anything. We don't have a sensible foreign policy debate in the United States at all, but Europe could put a stop to the nonsense. So let me end there, and I'd be happy to take a question or two if there is one.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can have a few questions from the students. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions?
I don't have a question. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Jeffrey Sachs.
Well, Mr. Sachs, I have no question. I just want to congratulate you. It's the first sensible thing I've heard for a long time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So nice to, and how nice to hear from you. This is, we need to tell our governments, come on. And by the way, you know, I've spoken with the French leadership. I think privately they agree, but they don't dare tell the truth. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we saw a few articles of you in the French media, so you had, a media spot on that, speaking especially on the economic situation. How can the economic situation be solved by ceasing the war? So this is by the ceasefire and stopping the war. So this is the main issue, I think.
Yeah, you know, basically, look, the war first is devastating for Ukraine. Whether Ukraine survives as a sovereign country is absolutely in question right now. We don't know, but it's the way it's going, it's going to be determined on the battlefield, not by principles. This is awful because Russia was not out to destroy Ukraine at the start. But when this turned into a bloody brawl with NATO, you know, Ukraine is absolutely going to be the first victim. So this is the first loss is everything. It is very destabilizing. Now, of course, it's all been horrendously compounded with the crisis in Israel and Palestine, which is, by the way, the same arrogance of the United States, because anyone with some sense knew that this is such an unstable situation with no solution to the Palestinian question at all. But the United States' arrogance is, we don't have to talk, Israel doesn't have to talk, nobody has to talk, everything's great. And in fact, our national security advisor said 2 weeks ago, or I guess now 3 weeks ago, the Middle East is the quietest that it's been in 20 years. This shows they know nothing. These people are ignorant. Because you don't even make a statement to, hide something that way. It just shows how foolish you are. And this is how foolish they are. Because they don't understand. So it's the same arrogance. But just the same, how can the economy function in this situation? We're going to have a very hard landing. I don't know, because macro forecasting is pretty difficult. Whether it's now or next year or the year after, we're just building up more and more problems. In the United States, our budget's completely out of control. We don't even can't get Congress to meet every couple of months. We have a near closure of the government. We have an upcoming election between an octogenarian who can't tell us right way off the stage and a criminal, convicted criminal on the other side. This is the American democracy. So this is not good for the economy, let me put it that way.
Thank you so much, Professor Sachs. Thank you for joining us from New York City, Columbia University, and looking forward to a personal discussion with you here at the University at Paris Business School. Thank you. Have a good day.